Hello guys, welcome back to Noob Nerd, and today we're going to be doing something that deviates from the normal comic book standard I set in the video. In these videos, I'm a primarily comic book TV movie focused guy on this channel, with my last voiceover review, but my first voiceover review being Spider-Man Far From Home, and I'm doing the same setup here with just my voice over some footage related to the show or film in question. Let me know if you like that sort of setup, or do you want me to do more face cam stuff like I did beforehand. Just comment below, let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz. I really appreciate the support if you give me that. Of course, I'm just starting out, figuring out what's the best type of reviews to do, discussion type. I usually just do this in-depth discussion based reviews, and I'm doing it with not a comic book property for once, but for a small show called Stranger Things Season 3. No, it's not called Season 3. It's called Stranger Things 3 because it might as well be a cinematic film that lasts 8 hours. That's binge worthy, and most of you should have binged by now because it's a fantastic show if you haven't watched it yet. And I will be doing spoilers to this discussion / review, where I give what I didn't like, what I did like, and of course an overall judgment in the end. Whether I give it a rating out of 5 or 10, I'll make my mind up when it gets there. So yeah, let's just get on with it, and I'll probably be doing like character by character, just assessing each character's involvement, how they did, the new characters and the old characters, while also of course in the middle of that just talking overall about cinematography, direction, comparing it to the other seasons, of course, because of course these character arcs span multiple years, and yeah, in the 1980s, it's a mad decade. Let's just get on with the review. Okay, so let's just start with the characters I feel got the best the best evolved character arcs, like the characters who really stepped up this season in terms of quality of writing, dialogue, place in the story. Because the thing is, the Duffer Brothers know how to get you with the nostalgia and the, you could say, formulaic storytelling, but it works. The formula works. They take it from the first season but just amplify it to a new level, but you know what you're getting yourself into. A group of kids all scattered around this place called Hawkins in the USA, and eventually they all come together. But some characters, they don't stay the same. They just grow in which they react to things, how they deal with these scary and action-packed situations that we're all so accustomed to, but also willing to learn more about. We learn more about the Upside Down, and we learn more about the people who deal with that stress of trying to figure out what's going on and all the horrors associated with that. And Joyce is a good character to start with because she really steps up the season, but also is very relatable in terms of, in a human context, in which if she gets herself so focused in the situation of trying to deal with this issue of the magnets going out, the magnets just falling off, such a simple issue, but because you've seen her in previous 2 seasons worry about her son Will and his safety, she spent so much time worrying about his safety that now that he's kind of more safe than ever before, technically, still pretty unsafe, but yeah, she doesn't have to look after him anymore as much. You can tell, like, the audience are inclined, if you watch the previous 2 seasons, to really feel for her thought process, while also figuring out that she maybe is just overreacting to the situation. She's just trying to find something to be a detective about, almost, and trying to figure out. She wants to solve a mystery that might not even be there, but of course it always is there. And it's really, that adds some really good layers and allows the audience to connect with the characters in cool ways, while also being like, you're supporting them, like you're part of the gang of the whole story, and you're trying to support these people and trying to hope, and their hopes and wishes, you have the same hopes and wishes, but you also wish they change in cool ways. It's hard to explain, but it's really cool. Joyce, she really steps up in terms of figuring out the mystery all by herself. Of course, I have to mention it, female characters, it's a duty to, it's the writer's duty to treat them as good character arcs just as much as the men are. And just as the kids have stepped up, just as Steve Harrington has stepped up, it shows that the motherly figure can also step up and also make an impact, and not just, of course, stay in the sidelines, as it were. And Joyce has never been one to do that, but she really figures out her partnership with Hopper, and I really like the conflict between her and him, in terms of of course, you could say sexual tension, but just fatherly and just warming nature, and but also, of course, stress and anxiety of it's comedic at times, but the comedy adds to it, and it's just really, it feels real. Like, if this was actually happening, like, this is how these people would react. Like, even if I live in the UK and I don't know what's going on in the USA, let alone the 1980s, you know what I mean? But it's just, wow, this is the best season yet. In terms of pure fun and enjoyment, while also connecting with those characters at the right moments when you want to. You don't want the whole thing to be essentially a parody of the 1980s. And it gets close to that. And at the start of the show, when they said it was showing the Russians trying to tear open a hole in the Upside Down, even though we thought it's all over, and we thought Stranger Things 2 had a more than satisfying ending. Stranger Things 3 manages to open a whole new can of worms, as it does. But also find new and cool ways to upgrade these, not upgrade, but really carry on their character arcs. And when you look back, you're like, every season's a good ending. You could end the show here, but when you look back, every new season is just like a whole package. Like, Duffer Brothers are just like, you just think they've been planning this all along, and it's so cool. It's so cool to think about. So you have the Russians, of course, setting up the whole open. I thought it was going to become a parody, almost like a Soviet Union, taking the piss out, and it is, and it's played for laughs. But also, it's all about how these main characters react to this situation that we all know to be like a common 80s trope. It's inspired in the Cold War era. This is what's going on, but this is how these characters are reacting to it, as well as the, of course, Upside Down stuff, and that proves to be like different villains from all over the place, not just from the Upside Down, but from the Russians as well. And also, of course, keeping it a secret from other people. That's always an issue, obviously. Less so in this season, because I think everyone knows, pretty much. But that's not the point. I think the whole point of this season was to just expand the universe. Really loose threads that you didn't know were loose threads beforehand. Like the Mind Flayer. What was he trying to do? What happened to Will's... of course, when Will got possessed, where did that come from? That when they got rid of the possessed entity within Will, it flew away, but we find out here where it went to after. Months have passed. It's in the summer era. Of course, that's what I liked about every season. This season's very, even though it all connects and it all adds to each other, each season seems very its own singular movie, set in a completely different like time scale. Like the first season is all about like high school life in a common suburban not even spring, just like common. It's like a season, like the second season is all about Halloween, and then the third season is all about the summer. It's not all about it, but that proves to be the platform for all this nostalgia, and all these different ways in which you see these characters. You see these characters during trick-or-treating like we did last season, but this time they're going to the swimming pool this time around and trying to deal with stuff there, and that all really adds to the world building. The world building is really essential here. It seems like I'm repeating myself a lot. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I am. Not sure. I'm just going with the flow, guys. Going with the flow. So Hopper, he wants to date Joyce. Joyce rejects him. That is a peak move, and Hopper in this season is very quite different to the past two seasons, in my opinion. Maybe I haven't watched the first two seasons in a while, so maybe my judgment's been affected there. My view is being affected there. But Hopper in this season, I think is very, very frustrating. Very just. David Harbour, I think that's the name, something like that. So forgive me if I forgot the actor's name, but because he deserves for me to say his actual name, because he's a brilliant actor, like everyone else is in the show. Everyone is so good. Best child actors out there. Some people are not watching this show because it has child actors, of course, but or of course child actors in usual medium aren't as good. But of course, when they're the main focus, you have to get the casting right and get all the casting right, including the new characters. And some of them that were recently introduced in season 2. But back to David Harbour, Hopper. I'm just going to call him Hopper because he is Hopper, and he's very unhinged. Yeah, that's the perfect word. Unhinged in this season. course, not just with the date situation, but also the situation at large. He knows it's just this situation again is happening with the Upside Down, and they thought they sorted it out before, but now they're not sorting it again. And then you have this really heartwarming interaction with, or trying to interact more with 11 as she, of course, tries to grow up and becomes more isolated and becomes more human-like, unless, of course, she's learning to love Mike, but also going through the trials and tribulations of puberty and all that, which of course always comes up with his common comedic tropes that really played well here in this season. Trying to figure out how to handle the situation with Mike and 11, but also dealing with Joyce's love situation, but also, of course, how you juggle all that within the Upside Down situation, but the Mind Flayer. And I think I still couldn't believe that scene in the mayor's office where he figures out he's working with the Russians and he's torturing him with his finger. It sounds so ridiculous, but it's so amazingly intense. It's just that middle of the season area, not just for Hopper's scene, but that, in my opinion, I'll watch this season in 2 episode brackets. So, of course, if you binge watch it, maybe the views are different, like to how you view the episodes. I watch the episodes every 2 episodes. So once at the episode 1 and 2, stopped. One day after, take a break. Then I'll move on to the next 2 episodes. And it was only for the finale that I watched it by itself. So it was 2, 4, 6, and then the 7th episode I watched by itself, and then the next day after, straight away, 8th finale. The 8th episode I watched by itself. So, but of course, I think it was that middle section, I think the show really reaches peak there in terms of just me getting purely hyped. It's just getting me so excited. Every scene was just on the edge of the seat stuff. Not even just for the Upside Down stuff. It was just the character interactions, how they react, what next. Would Hopper go even more mental? Would he become almost like a villain character? Would he just reject Joyce in a fit of rage and not be able to rekindle that relationship? It was just brilliant to watch. While also having the 4 kids down in the Russian underground. Oh, don't get me started on that. Perfect new team to supplement the adult team, and also, of course, Mike, Lucas, of course, and of course Will, who's back in the frame. You have Erica, expanded role from season 2, stroke of genius, great actress, young actress, but she's so comedic. Her comedic time is on point. You can tell her personality. I think everyone's personality shines through. Their actual personality in real life shines through, and that really adds to the Even though it's really hyper. This season's the most what's it called? What's the best word to say? Hyper realized, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's the word. It's just more in your face, hyper realized. But at the same time, all these actors are portraying in a way that you feel is natural, because they're taking a piece of their heart. You can tell when they're acting, they're taking a heart from themselves and their personality and shining upon there. Erica does good comedic timing, but also she has some cool moments with Dustin. That's the one. Dustin is separated from the original gang. Again, stroke of genius like they did in season 2. Expanded that relationship with him and Steve Harrington, and added 2 more female characters to the mix, and expanded one's role. She was so funny in season 2. Great lines. I saw her in that FX show Atlanta. She was only in one scene, but she was very good in that scene, and I'm glad she's got over into this show for triple times 25 the screen time, if you know what I mean. If you wonder, I think she's in the 2nd episode of Atlanta where the Paperboy goes and visits her. Sorry, I'm on a tangent again. Yeah, so Erica talks to Dustin about becoming a nerd and what it means to be a nerd. But of course, by the end, when you have the montage of all the characters, she gets the Dungeons and Dragons set, and she could be the next party, the next generation for that high school. Because of course, all the kids are growing up, and that's another major theme of the show. But of course, Steve Harrington's growing up with the realization that his actions have consequences. You love Steve so much. We've seen it all. We've heard it all. The memes of him being a mom, but also genuine affection, not just a meme. He's an icon. He really is iconic. Just as his relationship with the new character. This is the bit where I forget the name. How have I done that? I only watched it. I still finished watching it 4 days ago. Forgive me, lads. The new character played by Robin. Robin, that's the name. How can I forget her? Her brilliant. Just goosebumps and heartwarming stuff, man. It's like, she's shown to be a smart, intellectual. Of course, I have to go back to the female point. It's only recently that we've seen these characters portrayed smart, intelligent from the get-go. You know what I mean? These type of characters, especially in the 1980s setting. But she's working with Steve in the ice cream shop. You assume they have this relationship, this love relationship. That is, Dustin's making jokes. Oh, you two should get together. Steve, stop going for the girls that make you popular, and start going with the girls that actually make you like the girls that you actually like, not that you want to be just popular with. And you're rooting for that. You're rooting that as they work out that the Russians are the Russian code, with her knowing Russian. Of course, it's a bit of a coincidence. It's a bit convenient, but that she knows Russian, and that's what they specifically need at that moment in time. But it's trust me, it's one of those convenient things in nitpicks. That's a nitpick. Convenience that happens in TV shows and movies. So, but of course, when at the start, you could say she was a bit like, okay, she's just thrown in here. She's a good character, but she's just thrown here all of a sudden, just to satisfy the plot. And just, even though she is smart, she is intelligent, but it's like maybe she's too good at the start. She's already setting things in motion when we haven't seen her before. You know what I mean? But then the actress makes a good showcase of herself throughout the whole rest of the season from then on. The actress does at the start also, but of course I think the writing really suits to her, and she really becomes a full-fledged member of the Stranger Things universe in this season. Sorry about that. Just drinking. Yeah, she's revealed to be gay, basically, and that scene in the toilet after they've seen Back to the Future, lovely. Steve thinks he's laying his heart on the line, and you see her crying, and just you think she is struggling with her view of herself in a way that but you think it's in a different way. You think she's viewing herself as not worthy liking Steve Harrington, because you previously think that she had a crush on him, but it turns out she had a crush on his girlfriend, and that was wow. That was heart-wrenching. That was really wow. Just speechless. And I really felt for both characters at that moment. Of course, more so Steve, because we've seen him a lot. We've seen how he progressed from a essentially just a jock in high school to a mom. To a mom. He went from a jock to a mom, and that's what we like to see. And you see his reaction. He's, of course, obviously his heart sinks. You can see it. You don't have to show us. You can just feel it, and that goes back to the character interaction. You just know in their head what's going on, and you know the problems that arise from that. But the way he reacts to it so nonchalantly, he's still willing to be friends with her. That really shows the progression in itself. But that's one of those things that's hidden between the lines between these scenes. That it's not like it's showing, not telling. It's not. It's more so the audience can gathers the subtext, if you know what I mean, from these characters' emotions, what they're probably feeling, because you've spent so much time with them, because these actors are so integrated within their roles. Of course, speaking of new recent characters, we have second season we had Billy, and to be honest, in the second season he was felt a bit forced. Okay, bad guy or sexy guy. Okay, but when they explored him with potentially going with the Wheeler mother, I need to know her name actually, because she shows that the mother doesn't want to be on the sidelines anymore, with that cool scene with Nancy and her mom. Her mom, of course, wants to do something a bit more frivolous, if you know what I mean, with Billy in the swimming pool. But of course, after you see Nancy, after she got fired, talking to her mom about what it means to stand up for yourself, and that's a small scene in that dinner place, and that really goes a long way in showing the situation for women at that time. course, I think sometimes Nancy's situation at the workplace was a bit was too much on the nose, with all the workers laughing at her. Oh, why are you telling us news headlines? Rats exploding, rats being involved, poisonous rats. Do me a favor. that was on the nose a bit much, but nevertheless, her scene with her mom after she got rejected by Billy, but who's now infected by the mind flayer. That I'm talking a lot about that scene, but it's a really good small scene, but it's really cool, and the soundtrack of course adds to it as it does for every season, every episode. Sensational soundtrack, gets you really pumped for the action, especially in the Rush Underground, when they're just simply walking through a long corridor, you just feel the dread, you feel the tension arising, that the situation they're in is dire, and Billy's put in a really dire situation, and that helps. Of course, in the second season, he's portrayed as the villain. Again, that's on the nose a bit. He's supposed to be the deeper thing with the second season was that he was a contrast to Steve's character. But just like Steve, you see he gets the redemption he deserves, but in a cool, interesting, and different way that you don't expect. Like, you know what's gonna happen, but really you don't know how it's gonna happen. You don't know what effect this is gonna have. You don't know, are they gonna die or not? You know what I mean? Because it's a horror based show, this, but also the horror elements of it shown throughout. But it's so much more than that as well. So much more than that. And Billy, you feel sorry for him as he gets possessed, just as you would if anyone of these characters got possessed. But Billy, especially because the actor does such a good job. The actor again, he gets more screen time here, and he makes the most of it. Of course, he is helped sometimes by voice modulators, but nevertheless, it's just tension arising, especially when she talks to Eleven. I barely even talked about 11. So much stuff to talk about. Billy is just of course, they use a lot of past footage from previous seasons. In this season especially, it helps, of course, you get you up to speed, but they also do it in a cool way, and it makes you feel like the quick editing is done in such a way that it makes you feel like the situation in his head is just everything spiraling out of control. He's being body snatched, and me looking back, it really at first I'm like, where did this come from? But when you look back on season 2, it makes sense. Will got possessed as well, but not as much, maybe, if you know what I mean. I need to watch that second season again. The third season is just that concept has essentially evolved into body snatchers, and it's sensational to when when Eleven and Max are going into the dinner room, seeing what happened to the night guard, and they find out that they're all perfectly fine, but you know that they got kidnapped, and now all of a sudden they're acting nice, and that sudden realization in your head that holy crap, they're possessing like everyone now. Holy crap, it's mental, man. It's just wow. And Billy does such a good job capturing that dark element that you see from the villainous tone from season 2, but also applying the supernatural nature to it, and showing that as he looks upon 11, knowing that 11 closed the gate beforehand, you see the terror in his eyes, both from the mind flare, but also the terror in Billy's eyes as he realizes he can't get out of this situation, and he ultimately sacrificed himself following a heartwarming look back from 11, a last-ditch attempt to get through to him as she sees his memories in the beach, and the cinematography in that scene, especially in the final episode. I say the middle portion of this series was the peak for me, in my opinion. But of course, the ending, the finale, still has I think that was one of the best cinematography I've seen in ages. And of course, the writing was still good, up to par. What I would say that negatives of the season, there's only a few. I wish, of course, there's so many characters that some of them are going to be lost in the shadows, some of them are not going to be evolved. Their character arcs are not going to go anywhere as much as the other characters I've mentioned. Nancy and Jonathan, not as much. But I did like the Nancy subplot a bit. I wish there was not enough time for that. Jonathan, yeah, it doesn't really do anything. Sorry, mate. Sorry. I want to see more interact with Will as well, his brother. I want him to interact with his brother as well. Maybe, but of course we got next season as well. And who else? Will Byers, of course, he's left as, of course, he's not a victim anymore. People didn't want him to be a victim anymore after this danger who was, the constant danger who was in the past 2 seasons. You wanted to give him a break, but you also want to see his. To be fair, they did develop him a bit well. I think after I really liked the subplot of him feeling left out, feeling like everybody's grew up but him. He's still wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons, but everyone else is just ignoring him. And that kind of is like a meta comment on the show itself. Is like the whole point of the first season was that he was disappeared, but now he's essentially being seen in the writer's eyes, almost like now that Will's been saved, what do you do with him, with his character? But it's essentially that he feels left out. He feels like he needs to grow. He's struggling with the fact that he needs to grow up. I think after they deal with that fact, after that scene where he rips off, he uses a baseball bat, I think, to like get rid of his old fort in his garden. I think after that point, he just goes from a really complex character, he's such a great actor. You saw that in season 2 mostly. You see some here, but after that point, he becomes just like a warning call for the. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, Will, can you sense the mind flare now? Yes, I can. But of course, to be fair, for 3/4 mostly, or 2/4 of the whole series, he was a good character. So I gotta give him that. But for the rest of the half, he kind of just got resorted to a background character. But of course, his relationship with Eleven hopefully will develop as well. I want to see that dichotomy develop as they are, of course, now brother and sister sort of. And that leads me to 11. 11. She, of course, the posters made it seem like she was going to become more of an adult, like a proper. She was like, it really made her look like proper, like she's just been like, she's going to speak normally. She's going to be like every other kid, and she is like that. She is becoming like any other kid. But Millie Bobby Brown is such a good actress for this character that she the subtleties and nuances of her not speaking some words, being still reserved a bit, but also trying to not liven up, but like try and bring herself out into the world, and her being almost too amazed at the mall because she's never seen a mall in her life. Small things like that really go a long way. And of course, I think she might get limited screen time as much as this first 2 seasons, but you don't notice that when you're watching. You feel like she's in the thick of things, especially in the action sequences when she gets a full plethora of her powers, really satisfying the superpower junkies like myself. But her relationship with Max, of course, they love Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, love that. But their relationship, another female friend relationship you don't get to see too often on TV, between 2 girl kids. You've seen plenty of relationships between little boys, but of course you've seen the boys in season 1 getting their friend relationship. Now here you have a nice friend relationship between Max and 11, of course, who are portrayed as kind of rivals in season 2. So that's nice to see them come together now this season. And of course, I can't go without mentioning. I could talk about the show for a long time. I probably missed out a lot of stuff, but I'm going through of course, I've mentioned spoilers here and that, but like I said, I'm just focused on character by character and also sprinkling stuff about cinematography and all that other good jazz as I go on. So many moments here. Hopper's death. I forget Hopper's death as well. Who knows if he's still alive? Who knows? But nevertheless, his his narration of the letter. There's a reason it's being compared to I Love You 3000 from bloody Avengers Endgame, because it's on that caliber. 2 actors, Millie Bobby Brown and Harbour, does a good job. It's a sensational pairing. The pairing we didn't know existed until season 2, and it's just gone. It really has gone skyrocketed. It really has. But of course, in this season, you see the adults and kids separated, and that's another nitpick that I wish they'd like, as they were both in the middle of the season. As much as I love the middle part of the season, as they're like separated and doing shit. Excuse my language. I wish they talked more about like, oh, maybe our kids are in trouble a bit more. It's only until like really the end, I think, that they start realizing, oh crap, let's go back to our kids. But of course, though, another nitpick. And overall, the season is sensational. Alexei, of course, Murray, the conspiracy guy, again trying to sort out relationships between them two, Joyce and Harper. But I guess not as much as Nancy and Jonathan. but his screen time is developed again with Alexi, another meme, again another heartful meme, and it's like he's a funny character, but also goes to show in a cool way. Oh, not all the Russians are evil. So getting integrated back into American life. Who doesn't love that? And his death was soul crushing. Of course not in the way of other characters, obviously, but he was such a cool little side character. Such a funny guy, and his interactions with Hopper, even though they didn't know the same language, was iconic. Really love to see. And so with that said, I think that leaves it. I think that's enough. I can really pour my heart out into with saying I think that I've got nothing left in the tank for now. If you want me to talk more about this and talk about other stuff, leave your suggestions down in the comments below. I really appreciate your support. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't yet. Overall, this season was the best season, to most fun I've had. I think you've heard that in other reviews. I've heard that, but the same goes to me. It is the most fun I've had this season. Whether it's technically the best season, I'm not sure, because I can't really compare, because they're all. I need to watch season 1 and 2 again. Season 1's probably technically the best season, if I'm gonna have to guess, or if I would bet on it, if my life depended on it. But I think this one will have a special place in my heart. I think this, in my eyes, I think this will be the best one. I think it's gonna be hard to top this. It really is. Season 1's better than season 2, I think, but season 2's still good. I think season 2, maybe gets a bit more slack than it deserves. I think it's really good, season 2. I think all the seasons are good. I'm finding ways to criticize this show, but I shouldn't, because the show is sensational. So deal with it, guys. No rating. It's just sensational. It's just the most fun I've had. 80s in the gold. 10 out of 10. 5 stars. Whatever you want to call it. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.